keep in mind, I haven't thought about this in a while, so I don't know if my extensions will be as coherent.
Yeah, sure. Do you mind telling me the 1AR arguments on the pick?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. The first one was this Napatov card that he went for. It was informant deals are better than plea agreements.
Okay.
The second one was this IRB card, cartel violence is increasing now. The last argument is predictions are bad, their impact calc is wrong, the AF outweighs. Now, in the case, he responded to all the case turns, but the only argument that matters was the AF extends the disparate impact doctrine. That's good. It's a solvency deficit to the pick because the pick produces the doctrine.
Okay.
The underview, he extended drop the debater because drop the argument would be conditionality. Conditionality. Okay. And then Kondo was just, it splits the 1AR, which is bad for in-depth advocacy skills, and it skews my strategy.
On a separate page or just on case?
No, it was a separate page.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Okay, I'm good.
All right. The pick turns and outweighs the case. One point is sufficiency framing. The pick does the entirety of the affirmative, and the affirmative never articulate how much plea bargaining they can get rid of or how much disparate impact doctrine they have to extend in order to resolve their impacts, which means if the counterpart solves a sufficient amount of the case, which it definitely does, since it does the entire thing, that all of the impacts outweigh on auto risk because any risk of an impact is the only net benefit you have in the round. Second is rippling international violence outweighs the case. They're about racism in the CGS, whereas we're about international trust busting with corporate cartels that jack prices and cause mass violence in many different countries, including local cartels in Mexico, which is an impact that they just do not have an answer to, and all of their cards missed the boat on this. The link turn proper, they've misunderstood. Their Napatov evidence is about how you've arrested people, and then you can trick them into an informant deal by getting rid of their sentencing if they become an informant for you, but it doesn't answer the thesis of the pick, which is about trust busting, i.e. getting corporate leaders to come to the CJS in the United States when they're already out of our jurisdiction. Our right now evidence smokes theirs. It said antitrust offenses have to plead guilty, which plea negotiations result in C pleas. What this works is we have to incentivize them to come to the CGS in the first place since they're out of our jurisdiction. Only plea deals do this because they say we can guarantee that they get off for whatever crime they committed because they have definitively. They can get off for whatever their crime they've committed because it's a binding contract with the lawyers in terms of plea agreement. They can be overseen by a court. And an informant deal is much more shady and informal, which is a reason why it doesn't incentivize the same level of people coming. Second, your evidence in the underlined text says, quote, Jack Abramoff pled guilty to mail fraud in exchange for a reduced sentence, agreed to cooperate with the government. His assistance has made the possible prosecution of at least one congressman and several high ministerial officials. That is the reason your evidence agrees that plea deals are also necessary. The third argument is that there is not a trade-off DA. Even if the 2AR sounds fucking fantastic on informant deals are better, we should not foreclose the use of plea deals because there's not a single dissad to using plea deals in the 1AR. He's just saying informant deals are better, but this is the same way a counterclaim that solves the AF better does not compete if it's not mutually exclusive because there's not a net benefit in terms of not using plea deals. Keeping both options open is a good idea, and if there's not a trade-off between either of them, then you would definitively vote negative on the act of preserving plea deals, which all of our evidence says is better. Independently, plea deals are more commonly used, which means they outweigh OECD 8. Literature has criticized plea bargaining in criminal cases. This country, but arrests around the cartel case defendants are represented by sophisticated counsel, given informed charges, settlement, procedure, plea agreements are logical essential practice already and widely accepted. Now, their next argument. They say cartel violence is increasing now. This doesn't answer a trust-busting argument about local drug cartels in Mexico. Independently of that, it's just saying that legalization of some marijuana has caused some cartel violence. But that is not a general trend. It's pointing out two very specific cartels in two towns in Mexico, which is not the same thing as an invasive impact defense nor uniqueness for their link trend. The last argument is that the AFI way because predictions are bad. No, you consider responses to your predictions page. It's just that the specificity of the scenario outweighs. You consider structural violence impact coming out of our Grillo evidence, which means even if you win your predictions bad argument, our impact is the only impact in the round, which also answers it because you presume that you have something to weigh against our impact, but you don't, which means there's only a risk of the negative impact case. There's no precedent just said you extend disparate impact. I read a card on the pick from OECD that says there's no disparate impact of plea bargaining in cases of cartel violence or trust busting, which is a reason as to why it doesn't matter if you don't extend the precedent here. It was not, or this argument was not fully fleshed out in the 1 hour, which means the counterplan extends the precedent enough to resolve this. Also, the counterplan massively outweighs extending the disparate impact precedent because they didn't articulate an impact of this. We have a huge mass structural violence impact they don't have to answer. The theory interview. They say drop the argument as condo. They conceded two reasons to drop. They say conceded two reasons to drop the argument. First is the one I'm going for is substance credit. It ensures that all rounds go down to theory, even if I did something terribly not abusive, which means if there's in-round recourse for whatever I did was abusive, you should prefer that as a conceded argument. You say it's the logic of conditionality, but the version of drop the argument I'm going for is just that you should stick us with the counterplan, which means I don't have the opportunity to kick it. That gets rid of the conditionality portion of the counterplan, which means we can definitely drop the argument, even if there's some residual abuse from the fact that you had to give the 1 error as if it were condo. It's resolved by the fact that you've stuck us with the counterplan, which means you can go all in on a link turn that I can't kick out of. The conditionality shit. The negative gets one conditional counterplan that they have to pick between end of the school and the 2 hour. First is logic. Proving that the counterplan is a better idea doesn't disprove the act is a good idea, which means they have to advocacy skills allows you to defend a flawed model of advocacy just by proving whatever the negative side is bad. Second is testing. In the real world, real world people will attack your proposals from multiple directions and have conditional advocacies in the first place, which means you have to get better at defending a robust form of your effort. Third is ground conditional advocacies, repeated chest affirmatives, otherwise are stuck with the counterplan, which means the 1 MC is just 7 minutes of the same argument. The 1 hour has a really easy time just making link turns through because they only have to answer one argument if the counterplan has to be conditional. Defensive, if you want, all arguments are conditional. There's no way for teams to go for every possible argument. Saying the counterplans of the 1 argument that can be conditional is arbitrary. No neutral arguments, don't let them draw the distinction. Second, multiple firms check. You get just many conditional advocacies. Firms are even worse than stage shooters. New conditional world also prevents us from getting crystallized and back out because the way firms interact with the negative. Third, the score is uniquely problematic. The 1 is designed to criticize. So if you can generate a dissent from the CP, you can find a dissent to the status quo, and a dissent to the CP is a dissent to the status quo. Fourth, counter-inter tells your offense since I have to pick an advocacy. By the end of the debate, they get the last speech so they can fully develop their arguments against one advocacy. Their offense proper. They say it's key to in-depth advocacy. Turn the app has to defend their advocacy against the marketplace of different ideas. One or more counterplans and better status quo makes them better advocates of the plan. Switch how debates also any advocacy skills and negligence. They say it's key to depth. 1, counterplans tells your offense because depth in 2 hour and 2 hour discussion. 2, turn breadth is better. Most education debate comes from out around research. More arguments in around force you to study them in depth and out around. The strategy argument. 1, this is no different from tier theory. Those are conditional and they have to or the app order interpretation is better. 2, they made a structural abuse matters argument that you should cross the line here. I made the debate hard for you. It's not the same thing as structural abuse, which is a conceded argument from the 1 MC, so you shouldn't go down the 3 is impact term. Time and strategy pressure are good. They foster quick thinking and efficiency, strategic thinking, and learning how arguments interact with applicable everyday life. Link turns your terminal impact since the app learns to be strategic. They can navigate their way through a good 1 MC with strategies with conditional advocacies.
Yeah, that was really good. I'll start by talking about the pick. I like this impact framing you do at the top. I think those 2 arguments are good. I think one argument you want to add is not just why the net benefit outweighs, but maybe why the net benefit turns the case. So maybe why cartel violence would have a disparate impact, or why, or even better, why trust busting is able to tackle corporate crime that disparately impacts minorities. I think there's certainly evidence out there about white collar crime kind of propping up a lot of existing institutions that do harm minorities. So I think you might want to articulate why the net benefit not only outweighs but also solves the case. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The link turn, I think this is the only part of the speech where I think you're a little bit inefficient. And I think you could get through this a little bit more quickly. I like your explanation of how the Napata evidence kind of conflates 2 different types of deals. And I think the mutual exclusivity thing is good. But I think you could honestly just get through this with in 20 seconds fewer or so, just by maybe phrasing it a little bit more concisely, because I feel like you kind of make the same argument a couple times. And I think this analogy you give about how a counterplan that solves the case but doesn't have a solvency, or a counterplan that solves the case better but doesn't compete, doesn't prove an opportunity cost to the AF. I think that's a fine analogy, but I don't feel like you kind of need that. And I think at the point where you could just read a couple extra cards on this, that'll probably be the most important thing, just because at the end of the debate, you want to be able to hand the judge a stack of cards that's better than what the AF is handing them. And the 2 air is always going to have a leg up on spin if they do collapse the link turn like Witt did in this debate. So I think getting out a couple extra cards would probably be more worth your time.
I think I will in the future when we have picks like this, we'll have. I didn't have that stack of cards that is necessary for this debate, which is rough.
That's fair.
But I mean, totally when we do this in the future,
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, I don't think it was bad or anything. I just think that like the spin you had was good, but I feel like if there's a way to kind of put a little bit more of that into reading cards, that could be worth it. Um, the predictions argument I think was handled well. Cartel violence up. I think you could frame this through the lens of kind of like you're not defending the status quo, and that like you are still like in a sense kind of uniqueness counterplanning out of this because you are. I don't know the exact wording of the counterplan, but I'm assuming that you're like increasing plea deals for antitrust cases, which means that like wouldn't the counterplan be able to reverse some of those problems if you're increasing plea deals?
That makes sense. I think the counterpoint text was just like ban everything except this, and then a part about how they're good in the SQO.
Okay.
In the future, we can definitely like put these type of tricks in the counterplan, and be like, and then just like sort of spin out of.
Yeah. And I think overall the counterplan debate was good, but I think you can probably get through it a little bit quicker. Like I think you spent probably 310 on it. I think you could probably get through that in 245. Case, nothing really to talk about. That all sounded good. Yeah, nothing really to talk about there. I think the drop the arg stuff was done very well. Condo, I thought at first that you might be over covering this a little bit, but I think the time was actually probably fine. I think you could probably have a little bit more offense. So I think, well, I guess there are kind of a few arguments that I think you might want to be making. First is that picks uniquely have to be conditional because otherwise, if you're otherwise, there's no way for the 1 and C to develop diversified offense, and like then you're making just one argument the entire debate, which is both terrible for fairness because the neg has no real options, but also it's just really boring and doesn't allow for a lot of breadth. And I think a breadth argument is really the main direction. I think you want to be taking some more of the offense and developing that a little bit more. I think you could also kind of develop this real world argument and like weigh it a little bit more. So like you say like testing people will attack things from different angles, but I think if you make the argument about like how if a bill is proposed in Congress, there'll be multiple different objections and like doing some type of impact calc on like either just education outweighs fairness or even just real world outweighs, I think that could be good just because it seems like the AF only has fairness offense. So I think you can just toss out more things for them to have to jump through in the 2AR. Like if they have to win their fairness offense and win that like their fairness offense outweighs your fairness offense and win that fairness outweighs education, that's like 3 things they have to do in a super short speech, which could be good. So I think both winning that like your ground offense outweighs their time skew stuff and just winning that education comes first could be good. This overview is fine. Like these arguments obviously are not great, but there are more things for the 2AR to have to answer.
So in the future, in these debates, I want the 2AR to go for Condo. So how would you suggest, like cleaning up on the Condo page, but making it look like the 2AR?
I think you want to throw in a couple extra counterinterps. So like counterinterp, the neg gets gets conditionality if the AF like or the neg. I think you had this already. Gets one conditional option. I'd make more of a counterinterp solves their offense argument. But I think like in debates where it's probably not applicable here, but like if it's a new AF or like in debates there's something kind of weird about the plan. So let's say like you could even probably say the neg gets a conditional advocacy if the AF specifies a specific specifies the grounds, with the reason being that like if there's a precedence-based advantage to the AF, you need the ability to have multiple options to negate that. I think that's actually a pretty good argument that ground spec justifies conditionality.
No, I meant like after the 2 and R, I want the AF to go, all right, let's go for Condo, and then like lose.
So I'm not really sure what you mean by that, but my thinking more is that I think that the ways to develop this to give the AF more to jump through in the 2AR, and like maybe they would still go like I'm not really sure about like the kind of the psychology of what would make them go for it.
Yeah, in these debates, I feel like I'm on better ground if the 2AR goes for Condo and not the link.
That's fair. Then I think instead of trying to like kind of outsmart them and like use kind of psychology to be like I'll make them go for it, I think just developing it so there's more things for them to jump through. So I think in this particular debate, the kind of extra hoops you could have them jump through would be adding education outweighs fairness is one. Second is that some more developed fairness offense, fairness outweighs. Or sorry, more developed fairness offense, and that your internal link to fairness outweighs. Third is a couple extra counterinterps that shield some of their offense in different ways. And fourth, and I think maybe most importantly, is a reasonability argument.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Because I feel like that's just like, if the 2AR has to answer all of that, in addition to kind of a full court press on just like their own standards, that's like a really hard 2AR. And I think you could do all that in maybe 30 more seconds.
Yeah.
Which you could cut out from just like, generally more efficient, like just being more efficient. I think the only other thing on Kondo I would say is have more. I think you should have a better defense of this advocacy skills argument. You say it's good to defend against a marketplace of ideas. I think that's good, but I think you also might want to make an argument that like clash and advocacy is inevitable. Like no matter what, the 2NR and 2AR are going for robustly defended arguments. It's just a question of whether or not the neg is able to be more choosy, like be able to pick and choose more in terms of what they go for. But that no matter what, like both sides are still comparing arguments explicitly, and there's just very little link differential. But I think overall it's good. I would still worry the most about the 2AR on the link turn, but I think that's just probably a card thing more than anything.
And that's also solved in the future because, like, with obviously like the DebateDrills infrastructure, we will churn out like picks that have like
for sure
fantastic like cards.
For
and
sure.
I'm beginning to appreciate picks with more LARPy big stick disads, because like my thing this year has just been like very very tiny picks, and a lot of them just have like small impacts. But like going for a pick with like a big disad sounds like a blast.